So when I first got the idea to start the gym, I was going to college pursuing a bachelor's in exercise science. I was working as a personal trainer, and then I had a 2001 Ford Ranger that was falling apart, but it was my little side hustle. I was buying and selling furniture and tables and just couches, anything you could think of. But then I realized, why am I flipping furniture and couches and tables when I'm a personal trainer pursuing an exercise science degree, and I could start my own personal training studio one day. So I quickly realized that I knew the market for flipping weights and selling weights better than I did for furniture. So I started messing around with transitioning my side hustle from buying and selling furniture to buying and selling weightlifting equipment. After I did that for about a month, I realized that I could actually start my own gym doing this. Now, at this time, it was late 2019, early 2020, when I first started buying and selling the weightlifting equipment. At this time, the gym was in its infancy. I started the gym in 2024, so I had a few years to go. So once I realized I could start buying equipment and working towards starting my own personal training studio one day, I just went on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist and going to estate sales and garage sales, and I was finding really good deals on high quality gym equipment that I was planning on keeping instead of flipping. Because with flipping the weightlifting equipment, I was just doing it for a profit. But if I wanted to start a gym, I needed to start buying pieces of equipment that you find in a gym. So I started finding high quality deals over time, putting a certain amount of my paycheck into finding this equipment, buying it and storing it with the hope that one day I'd be able to pull this equipment out of storage and put it into my own gym. So I was flipping this weightlifting equipment for roughly 4 years before I started my gym, and the whole time the storage unit I had where I was keeping the equipment to store just kept filling up more and more and more. And then one day I loaded in, I think it was a treadmill, into the storage unit, and I was like, I don't think I can fit this in here. And that's when I kind of came to the realization that I had enough equipment to start the personal training studio and transition it into a gym. So around the time I graduated from college with my exercise science degree in December of 2024. At this time, I was also the assistant general manager, and I was a personal trainer at the commercial gym I was working at. At the time, I was in a weird spot because I was really ingrained in this commercial gym I was working at, and I had to figure out how I was going to start my own gym while working at a gym and quitting that gym, and it was a very interesting dynamic. But I knew that I had to do it because one day I sat down and I thought to myself, well, I'm at a position now where I can start the gym. It's now or never, and I decided to do it. Now, before you open up a gym, you can't just tell someone, oh, I'm gonna start a gym here, and they're just gonna give you the space for free. You have to jump through a whole bunch of hoops. So on May 4th of 2024, I filed my articles of organization for my LLC with the state of Indiana. Now, what that meant is that I could begin to set up my business, because just because I had the equipment did not mean that I was going to be able to just open a gym. So I got the LLC set up, got all the paperwork done with that, and then I had to go try and talk to landlords and find a spot. When I was first looking for a gym location, I was trying to be cheap, and I found a large storage unit that would let me run a personal training studio out of their storage facility. That was about 1,000 square feet, actually. It was a huge storage unit, and I was moving my equipment in, but I kept having condensation and water problems. So I moved about half my equipment in, and then 2 weeks later, I moved all the equipment back out into storage because that spot was not gonna work. I was looking at multiple places before I found a spot on the west side of South Bend. It was called the Sample Street Business Complex. It was a 400,000 square foot warehouse, and I had about 900 square feet of that warehouse just for me. I moved all my equipment in there, and in May and then in June, I trained my first clients in my personal training studio. That was a pretty special feeling because everything came together. The equipment I'd been saving for 4 or 5 years at the time, I was able to get all that equipment out of the storage unit and find a spot. Now, this proved very challenging. I had no experience in commercial real estate or talking to landlords, finding a spot to start my own business, and the landlord had to believe in me because I did not have my business running at the time, so I'd have been a completely new tenant with no business experience, so they were taking a risk on me, and that made it a lot more difficult to find a location. Now, moving the equipment in was tough because I didn't really have any help at the time. It was just myself and my dad using my pickup truck, moving like 2 or 3 pieces of equipment in throughout the week. and it took like 2 or 3 weeks to get it all set up. But then June 1st, I was open for business and I was training my first clients. Now, that was a very special feeling because everything came together. I was able to see the equipment that I'd been saving up for years, and my clients that I had all came together in the same location, and I was able to begin my journey of a gym owner. Now, when I first moved all the equipment in, I remember feeling like I had just fallen out of an airplane into the ocean. I had no boat, no life raft, but there were pieces of a boat laying around me in the water, and starting the gym felt like I had to take those pieces and somehow craft a boat to keep my gym afloat, because right now I needed to get people into the gym and I had no clue how to do that. The personal training studio kept going well in my initial location. Actually, I was not there very long. I was there from June 2024 to September of 2024. I was there for a very short amount of time because the building I was in got sold. The Sample Street Business Complex got bought and sold to new owners. Now, the new owners were not allowing my members to come in, all 6 of my members to come in 24 hours, which was a deal breaker for me. I needed my members to have 24-hour access to the gym in order to compete with the other gyms in the area. And I was talking to the new building owners, my new landlords that had just bought the building, and they essentially told me that I needed to move locations or get a business attorney to fight them. So I decided it was going to be much easier to move locations. So again, I just thought I found my spot for a year, but then I was out looking for a new location yet again. This is when I found the location I'm in now. I found the front room. I was driving, it was a warehouse I drove by every single day, and I saw in the front window, it said space for lease. I peered through the window, realized this was probably gonna be exactly the size I needed. So I ended up calling the number on the sign, talked to the guy, and he got me in the next day. I signed the lease with him on the new spot. So that was a little terrifying because I had to move out of the current spot I was in and move into the new spot in 2 days over the course of a weekend, because I did not have money to pay for both rents. So in 2 days, myself, my dad, and 2 of my friends moved my entire personal training studio into my new location. That was not a very fun time, but we got it all moved in and I got everything set up over the weekend, and I ended the lease on October 1st and started my new lease that same day. I was open for business, had no downtime at all. I was pretty terrified at first, honestly, moving from my old location to the new location, because the old location I was paying just under $700 a month for rent. I did not have to pay utility or property taxes or anything, but at this new location, my rent doubled and I had to pay utilities and a few other costs. So my operating cost had almost tripled. At this point, I was very concerned that the gym was not going to survive, and I was very skeptical that I was going to be able to get enough members to keep the gym going. So the gym actually kept going well at that point, and I was in that location for 2 months before my landlord came up to me and asked me if I wanted to expand my gym. I was very excited to jump at the opportunity of expanding my gym, but my operating costs were under $2,000 at this point. And if I said yes, my operating costs would jump to about $4,000. Now, $4,000 was a whole lot of money monthly that I was going to have to commit to the gym. And at that point, I knew that this expansion was going to be the decision that made or broke the gym. And it was terrifying, but it was also exhilarating. I ended up agreeing to expand, but my landlord had a few more things in mind. He wanted me to talk to his business advisor, so his business advisor would give him the okay for my gym to expand, because my landlord was not convinced that my gym was going to succeed, and he wanted to get the A-OK from his business advisor to let me expand. Now, that was probably the most intense conversation I ever had in my life, because I knew that the fate of my gym depended on this conversation going well, and I prepared for it. And when the time came, I nailed every single question. I was very, very nervous, but then at the end of the interview, essentially, the guy looked at me. He was a multimillionaire, and he said, "You know, you're a very impressive young man, and I think you're ready to take the next step with your gym." And that was honestly the best compliment I've ever gotten in my whole life. So went ahead with expanding the gym. My rent more than doubled and my operating costs more than doubled, but I just remember thinking that I wanted this more than anything, even though this was probably the largest risk I'd ever taken in my whole life. Fast forward to 1 year later, and the gym has come a long way. That $4,000 operating cost does not scare me anymore, which proves that the gym has, in my eyes, succeeded.